Hello, everyone. This is Jacob with Innovation Property Management, and I would like to take a moment to thank you for getting to this point in your application process. If you're sitting here watching this video, it's because you're ready to sign your lease. And I would like to take some time to detail the highlights of the lease that really matter. Now, while I am not an attorney and an attorney has written this up, I have gone through it many, many times, and I can help explain some of the parts that might cause confusion. So let's get started. The first section of this lease is talking about who's on the lease and the dates as to when the lease is going to start and stop. Now, the lease is between an owner and a tenant. The property management company, Innovation Property Management, is actually in the middle. So you have an owner and you have a tenant, and they're going to come together on this lease. So as you proceed down, it talks about your address of the property, the number of occupants that are going to be living in the property. So you have people that are financially responsible, which is anyone 18 years or older, which is who filled out the application. And then additional occupants would be any minors that are on the lease from 0 and to 17.9, whatever you want to call it, up until 18 years of age. Now, it doesn't mean that they're responsible for paying the lease or anything like that. But by law, we need to document who's living in the home and who's on the lease. And this section will discuss just that. As we move further down, it talks about the term of the lease and renewal options. Our leases are almost always at least 12 months long, or 11 and a half months, or 12, almost 13 months, and almost never less than 6 months and 1 day. Now, why is that? Anything under 6 months and 1 day is considered a short-term rental property. Sales tax becomes involved, licenses become involved, and that's just not what we do for the most part at Innovation Property Management. So you'll notice on there our leases are roughly 1 year long, give or take. They do not have to start on the first of the month. You might start in the middle of the month. You might start a couple of days into the month. You do not have to start in the beginning of the month. Having said that, we end all of our leases on the last day of every month. So whether it's the 30th or the 31st, it will take you all the way through an entire rent cycle. People ask, why is my rent not prorated? We do prorate rents, but our rents are prorated on the second month. Why is that? Everybody says, why are you prorating the rent in the second month? And actually, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it from an owner and property management standpoint. We prorate the second month because we want to make sure that tenants can come up with a full security deposit and a first month's rent, a full rent upon moving in. That shows another ability to pay and their intentions throughout the course of the lease. That's why we prorate month 2, not month 1. So that will all be found under the term and renewal section of this lease. It also states that in there you have to give 30-day written notice prior to the end of the lease with your intentions to vacate the home. Now, we, on the other hand, give you 60-day notice as to if we're going to be renewing the lease to you, what the new rental amount would be, and that gives you 30 whole days to figure out if you want to stay there or not, and then an additional 30 days to either move out or to enjoy the new lease. So we ask that you actually submit in writing your intentions 30 days before the lease is over if you're going to stay or go. That is a quick way to lose a security deposit and something we do not want for you. It is not to our benefit. It's our benefit to give all of that money back to you. So please make sure that you give us at least 30-day written notice of this. The next section on the lease that we're going to talk about is the monetary, the money, the rent, what we're all sitting here for. It states very clearly right on this in this section how much your rent is going to be. It's underlined and bolded. In this particular case, it's a $3,500 rent, the lease that I'm looking at right now. Our rents are due on the first of every month. We give you a 5-day grace period, which means on midnight of the 5th, it becomes late. And the computer is already geared up to charge a late fee come 12:01 a.m. on the morning of the 6th. You want to make sure to get that rental payment in before midnight of the 5th. It's a quick way to get a late fee that hopefully is never needed. So, first to the 5th. Then, if you're late on the morning of the 6th, we then go and place notices on everybody's door. The notices are 3 days to pay or vacate notices. These are the legal ramifications of not paying rent on time. So a 3-day notice, which we're not going to get so detailed into right now, is 3 days to pay or vacate. And it's 3 business days starting the day after the notice is delivered. So if we're just talking about a week, Monday through Friday, and the 6th falls on a Monday, you have until the 7th, 8th, midnight of the 9th, as long as it's not a holiday or a weekend, to pay the rent before eviction proceedings begin. So while you'll still be paying a late fee, at least at that point, you're not going to also be paying attorney's fees. So please make sure that you get those in there at that point in time. All of our leases also state that there is a per dollar a day, I think it's $5 a day, after the late fee is initially charged as it continues. So if you're 3 days late, it's generally a $75 late charge for the first day, and then $5 every day thereafter. So please make sure that you get your rents in on time. You're allowed to pay through your portal, which is free if you do an e-check. It costs money if you do a credit card because the credit card companies charge various percentages. We don't get that. We don't want you to have to pay that. So if you can pay it by e-check, that would be great. You can swing by one of our offices, give us a check, give us a money order. We accept everything but cash for the most part. So please be sure that when you come in that you provide one of these types of payment methods, unless you go online and pay it through the portal, which is absolutely the easiest method. And you can sign up to do an automatic payment plan. A lot of people think that we go in and take money out of your account. That's not how this works. You actually have to set it up on your end to push the money. We don't have your banking account information. Our system does not store it. We can't pull, you have to push it. So if you do it that way, please remember, we just can't go in there and take your money out. You have to send it to us. If you have questions about that, that's another video, but it's all through your portal. Now, you're allowed to pay through check until you start bouncing. Even online, an e-check, you can pay until you start bouncing. Then you get a $40 NSF charge, and then late fees and so on and so forth. So please make sure that your checks and your online payments are good. That'll be a big money saving for you. The security deposit section has a lot of words in it. It's actually over a page long, and I'm going to condense it down as brief as possible. The security deposit is the amount equal to 1 month's rent or sometimes 2 months' rent with our company. So if your rent is $3,500, you have a $3,500 security deposit. If your credit score or your background came back a little bit shaky, then it's a $7,000 security deposit according to this particular lease. So in a security deposit, as I said earlier, our goal is to give you every dollar of that money back. We do not benefit as a company, nor does the owner benefit by keeping that money. A lot of people get very confused about that. You've overcharged me for this, you've overcharged me for that. It's not the truth. What happens is when you move out, if there is a deduction on your security deposit, we have to provide receipts. We have to provide before and after pictures. It's an entire lengthy process that I'd really rather not go through, as long as you just leave the home the way that you found it or in better condition. So what this is all saying are the dates and the times that get taken into account as you're going through your security deposit. So we as a company, after you move out, we have 15 days to inspect their home, to take our move out inspection pictures. And if everything is left perfectly, we must report back to you with your security deposit notice called a SODA, which is an accounting of everything that had been paid in and is going to be paid out. And if you've left it perfect, we're going to give you a check right then and there. And actually through our portal, if you did the move out button through our portal, you can enter your banking information and we can wirelessly send you the money that much quicker. However, if we do have to make deductions against your security deposit, we have 30 days, not 15, 30 days to notify you in writing per the statutes of our intent to withhold the money, prove to you why we're withholding it through pictures or through receipts or whatever, in order for you to, if you have a complaint, you can write us back. It has to be in writing, and object to why we're withholding the money, and then prove to us why we are wrong. Does it happen? Yeah, we're human. We can make mistakes. But you have to make sure that your paper trail is better than ours. And we've been in and out of these homes a lot. So please be sure that you take great move-in, move-out pictures when you go in so that you can compare with ours. And obviously, we're going to do what's right by you and the owner and ourselves, and make sure that we return as much of that money as possible. Once again, we don't benefit. I'd rather just give it all back to you. There's a whole section in here about the laws and the statutes and everything that you're welcome to look, but this was just security deposits in a nutshell. The next section that we're going to discuss is called Policies and Procedures. It's 1.2. There are a lot of policies and procedures when renting a home, and this is more or less of a catch-all of all the various things that can come into play. For instance, quiet enjoyment. If you're living in a house and you're playing loud music and it's disturbing the neighbors, you're no longer living peacefully and quietly. We have the right to send you a 7-day notice that you need to cure this event. The neighbor also has the right to call the police if it's after hours. So please make sure that you're respecting everybody all around you, especially if you're living in one of our multifamily properties. People are so close together at times. Use of the premises. I always tell people when they're signing a lease with us, especially now, you're talking about a lot of people that work from home. That doesn't bother us. What bothers us and what bothers homeowners associations and homeowners is if you're running a business out of your home. Clients and customers are coming to the property. They're parking in the driveway. They're making an issue. That we can't do. That's running and operating a business versus working from home. There's a very big distinction. So we want to make sure that, I always use the examples, no nursing homes, no daycare centers, nothing like that. But if you're just running a regular telemarketing business with you're the only one on the phone, have at it. No problem whatsoever. As we continue to go down the lease, all of your vehicles should have been made known to us so that we can either register them with the associations, or at least we have some sort of knowledge at what's at the property. If we start seeing 10 cars at a property and they're not on the lease or on the application, there is a chance that they could get towed. So we just want to make sure that we have documentation of all the vehicles that are at the home. All vehicles must have license plates on them and be registered, which is basically the license plate. And they have to be parked in a driveway or in a parking space, not on the grass, not one tire on the grass. A lot of associations love to send us letters, your tenants are parking in the grass. So please be sure that your cars have license plates and are in the driveway or in the garage. I know some of you out there like to tinker around or rebuild or rehab cars. It's not a problem. If you have a garage, the car needs to be put in the garage. You can't do it outside. So please keep that in mind. Moving right along, we're talking about assignments and subletting of the properties. Subletting properties is not going to work with Innovation Property Management or any of our owners. We always want to know who is in our property. If for whatever reason you cannot fulfill your lease, or you need to bring a roommate in to help you pay for the lease, or whatever the situation, it must go through the office. People need to apply. You need to have roommate addition, roommate subtraction, whatever the situation is. You cannot sublet. You can't rent a home for $2,000 and then re-rent it for $2,500 and pocket the difference. You can't even do it if it's the same amount of money or less money. You can't, who's ever on the lease needs to be living in the property. If not, give your property management a call and let's see how we can make this work together. Damage to the premises. Accidents happen. Okay, we all get it. And wear and tear happens. There's differences between these instances and damage to the property caused deliberately. First of all, any person or group of people that rent our homes automatically has a liability insurance program through their benefit package that covers up to $100,000 of liability of damage that the tenant does to the property. This is not damage because you didn't feel like wiping your feet before you came in and the rugs are all stained. This is accidental damage. If you're cooking on the stove and something, God forbid, happens and there becomes a fire, that's an accident. And nobody's going to get really upset with you. We just have to be honest. We have this policy for you. You're paying for it. We will go to the policy and we will make it work. So that's very different than if, like I said, wiping your feet on the floor or putting holes in walls. That's damage to the property. You will be responsible for 100% of any damage that you do to the property. So please make sure that you're being very careful about that. Dangerous materials. We're not storing gasoline and illegal substances or anything of that nature in garages, inside the home, in the attics, anything like that. Anything combustible, anything illegal, we don't want them in the home. Not because we're so, concerned about the property, which we are, but we're really honestly quite concerned about your well-being and your family's well-being. So let's make sure that we keep the dangerous materials off site. Utilities. By now, if you're signing this lease, your power and water or whatever utilities that are needed for this particular property should have already been turned on in your names, and the reference IDs need to have been given to your property management company, because we have already turned the utilities off, or they will be off by the end of today in our names. So please make sure that if you have not provided that over to your manager, you do so at this point in time, because you're going to get to the home and there's not going to be any utilities. Please be careful. Section 1.3 deals with maintenance and repairs. As we just discussed, anything that you do, even on purpose or sometimes accidental, you are responsible for. Whether your liability policy or not covers it, you are ultimately responsible. So let's talk about a couple of things that you can do in section 1.3 that can prevent you from having these types of troubles. Basically, once a month, change your AC filters, or once every other month, part of your benefit package, we send you AC filters every 2 months. Just pop the old one out, put the new one in, throw it away, you're good. Once a month or once every other month, pour a cup of bleach or vinegar down the AC PVC line. If you go to the air handler inside the home, you'll see a white PVC that angles up with a hole in it. Open the top, pour a cup of bleach, close it, that's it. That keeps the drain line open. That actually prevents units from getting backed up and from basically flooding the house and then no longer cooling the house. So that's a very important big one. If there's a drip in the toilet, you hear the toilet running, it's your responsibility to change the flapper. If there's anything basically $75 or less, is going to be the tenant's responsibility, whether it was their fault or not. Why is that? Why do we have an arbitrary number? Because if I have to call a plumber to fix a leaky flapper, the plumber is going to charge us about $125. But if you go to the store and buy a flapper, an expensive one is $5. It doesn't make financial sense for us to send a plumber when you can do it for $5 or less. So smoke detector batteries. By the way, we provide those to you for free. Come to one of our offices if you have a problem with your smoke detector beeping. I can't tell you how many homes I go into where the smoke detector beep, beep. All it needs is a new battery. Come to the office. We'll be happy to replace that battery for you. Once again, under $75. So even if it's not your fault, these little maintenance items, rather than putting work orders in, go ahead and take care of some of those yourself. If you need help or coaching, we can even coach you through over the phone. Or if you go on our website, we have DIYs of how to fix certain things in your home. Or Google, YouTube, they have a lot of different ways that can help walk you through some of these things. It's going to happen a lot quicker than us having to send somebody out where we're now at their mercy of their schedule and yours. So this is a lot about the maintenance and repair section. Do the right thing. When you're taking a shower, if there's a bathroom fan, turn on the bathroom fan. Why is that? It takes the moisture out. It prevents mold and mildew from forming. If there's no fan, generally there's a window. Crack the window if you like a hot shower. That will also help with the air circulations. If you have any other questions about that, refer back to your lease, just like on all the other sections of your lease, to make sure that you are in compliance. Once again, our whole goal is to get the property back many years from now in similar conditions so that you can have all of your security deposit back. Section 1.4, general clauses, right to inspect. What does that mean? We have the right to inspect the home, basically. So we cannot just come over to your home and unlock it and come on in. That's not what we're talking about. We have to give you written notice. Generally, it's 24 hours. We usually give you a little bit more if we need to inspect the property. At least once or twice a year, we're going to come over and take pictures for the homeowner. We're not interested in your belongings. We see a lot of belongings. Don't care about it. We just want to make sure that your home is being maintained in a proper manner. We're going to be looking at carpets. We're going to look under sinks to see if the water is dripping in the cabinet and rotting the cabinet out that we should have known about. Leaky faucets. We're going to be checking all those types of things on those inspections. However, even though we have to notify you in writing, there is one caveat as to when we do not have to notify you in writing and we can just enter. Obviously, we're going to knock first. And that's an act of God. Flood, fire, hurricane. I remember when I first started in this business and we had 3 hurricanes back to back to back in 2004. I personally went to, at the time, 140 homes myself and went through every single one to make sure that you guys were okay and that the homes were okay. And actually back then they weren't all okay. Thank God all the people were fine, but not all the homes. So those are really acts of God, or the only time that we can just barge into your property without written notice. If we've provided written notice, we then have the right to come in. So keep that in mind. You're also allowing us to display signs on your front yard in cases where HOA is allowed. If we're going to put a home up for sale, we're going to put a for sale sign. If we're going to put a home back for rent because you're moving out, we want to rent it before you move out for a smooth, seamless transition, we have the ability to do so. When you surrender the premises back to us, you've given us, remember, you got to give us 30-day written notice that you're going to be leaving. When you surrender the property back to us and you give us the keys, if we've given you 2 keys, give 2 keys back. If we've given you 2 remote controls for the garage, give those back. If we've given the gate cards or passes, if that applies, give those back. If not, you're going to get charged for those. You don't want to do that. But when you do give the property back, make sure you take all your belongings, because those belongings are going to unfortunately go into the trash. You can come over to my house anytime. I don't have any of your belongings for people that left things behind. They go into the trash. So this gives us the ability that when you surrender the property back to us, you're handing it back, and whatever is in the property at that point no longer belongs to you. It now belongs to the property, in which case we're going to re-rent it and nobody's going to want that stuff. We do not allow smoking in any of our homes. We don't have a problem for if you want to go outside in the garage, on a patio, a lanai, on the sidewalk, no problem at all. But we do not allow smoking in the home. Animals. Most homes will allow pets, okay? But we do a pet screening, and every pet has to go through a screening application just like you guys did as you came into the property. If you have no pets, you can bypass this section. Now, we do not discriminate against pet like service animals, but they do have to go through the pet screening application. It's very interesting. A lot of people think that they have a service animal, but when you go through the process of pet screening, less than 30% of the people that say their animal is an emotional or a support animal actually qualify. So legally, we send it all to this third party for them to do the screening and to tell us if it is a service animal or not. Why am I mentioning this? Because if it's a service animal, there's no pet fee, there's no pet rent. If it's a legitimate one. If it's not, there are pet fees and pet non-refundable deposits that have to be paid if the owner allows for it in their property. So please be honest, because guess what? We do find out, and it's not hard to find out if you have an animal. So just be honest with us, and that'll be fantastic. This is a binding agreement. These are legally binding documents that we're signing, and technically it goes to the heirs. So you want to make sure that you're signing for yourself and for the rest of your family. Okay, they are legally binding documents. We do not allow, and I can't even believe this is still in a lease, we do not allow water beds in any property. That is a standard thing in almost every lease I have seen for over 15 years. Go figure, it's self-explanatory. This is also, there's a hold harmless clause, which means you are not going to fault us, and we are not, and you're not going to fault the homeowner should something go wrong. You are agreeing to release all parties. Once again, this is a very common thing in basically every real estate contract is a hold harmless agreement. It's nothing really to worry about. Application. Why does it say application on the lease? Obviously, you've already made an application in order to get this far. Well, the reason why it says this on the lease is because if it says application, this is all subject to an application that you've already filled out and have passed. The thing is that if it's found out that the application was being lied upon or we were being misled for whatever reason, this section gives us the ability to 7-day notice to cure you, or gives us the right to evict based off of lies on an application. So if we asked if you had ever been evicted from some place and the application said no, when we found out later that you had, this gives us the ability to go back and say they lied on the application. It's going to happen. Insurance and risk of loss. Once again, if you're renting with Innovation Property Management, you already have a liability insurance policy. But let's discuss the difference between a liability insurance policy that we have and a renter's insurance policy. Liability insurance, which is what we require at a minimum of $100,000 liability. Now, we discussed earlier in this video that if something accidentally happens, such as that kitchen fire that we discussed, we have that $100,000 liability policy on you, and that will help go to rebuild the home. What it does not do is it does not protect your belongings, and it does not protect, quote unquote, your interest on a daily basis. So if you had to move out of the home into a hotel or whatever, that policy doesn't take care of that. A renter's insurance policy does. So if you take it one step further and you go out and you get your own insurance policy, your own renter's insurance policy, it might not be much more, maybe a couple of dollars more a month, but it protects your belongings, whereas the liability policy that we give you will not take care of them. And all renters insurance policies already have that same $100,000 minimum liability coverage in there. So if you're worried about your belongings, you might want to opt for a renter's insurance policy. Notices. A lot of our homes in the state of Florida are in homeowners associations, condo associations. We don't really have co-ops here, but really HOAs and COAs. And what they come with is a whole list and a whole binder of rules and regulations in order to keep their communities looking exactly the way that they want. Now, statutes state that they have to give you a series of notices if there's an infraction. Sometimes it's 2 notices, sometimes it's 3 notices, and then they're allowed to start to fine you. The statute states that after a certain period of time, it's a $100 a day fine for a maximum of 10 days, plus attorney's fees if it gets that far. And that does not mean that you can pay the $1,000 and the attorney's fees and not fix the problem. So if we've gotten notification from a homeowners association that there is a problem and we've notified you each and every time that we get this notice and they turn around and fine us, we're going to be passing that fine on to you. So please be cautious. When you rent property within an association, there are rules and regulations that you have to abide by even if you don't own the property. And those fees go up quick. $1,000 happens just like that. So make sure that you're responsible and you're responding to any notice that is being provided to you by your manager. If you have questions on those, make sure you reach out to them quickly. Mold. Mold is a 4-letter word. Just kidding. So actually, I'm not. It is a four-letter word. But what we have here is a mold situation. What do we need to do with mold? First thing you need to do is if you see mold is give us a call. Hello, property manager. There's mold in my apartment. There's mold in my home. We need to figure out where it's coming from. Odds are it's a water leak. But there are other kinds of mold and mildews and funguses and everything that I am not an expert on, and that we have people that we can send out to see if it's actually a problem. There's a very big difference between mold and mildew. For instance, if you're on the less clean side and you don't scrub your shower down with bleach or vinegar or whatever, and you get in the grout lines and on the tile that black, green, mildewy appearance, that's mildew. That's generally not mold. Now, if you just start seeing mold on your shoes and your clothes in the closet and on the walls, that's mold and there's probably a water leak. We need to know about it ASAP. Very, very quick. We also need to say that we're going to turn around and ask, how did this happen? Is it something that you caused? Is it something that the property caused? Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Ways to avoid and to stop the mold and the mildew: quickly spray it down with some bleach. That's very important. If you're leaving windows cracked, it rains in the summer in Florida, and sometimes rain gets in between the glass and the house, and next thing you know, you could have mold real quick and you don't even know it. It can get behind a dresser. If you're leaving a whole pile of dirty laundry that's all sweaty from kids' basketball games or whatever in the corner, that can create mildew and mold. You want to have air circulation. You want to turn on the air conditioner to an appropriate level. You want to make sure that you're cleaning properly. Most molds and mildews will just dissipate at that point, or actually they won't dissipate. They will never even start. It's the persistent ones that we need to worry about and make sure that it's going to be okay for you. So when you see mold, let us know. It does happen. It's nothing to freak out about. We will take care of it. The last section that we're going to talk about is the early termination liquidated damages. A lot of people get confused with that. A couple of years ago, the state of Florida adopted a policy where it gives the tenants the option, two different options, if they need to break the lease early. And I'm going to explain both of them, so hopefully it's easy to understand, because otherwise a lot of people have had a lot of questions about them. If you are unable to fulfill the remainder of your lease, and let's say that you've lived in the property for 6 months and for whatever reason life changes, you got a different job, you lost a job, health reasons, life happens, we get it. So there are two different boxes that you can check, and I'm going to explain both of them. On our lease, if you check the first box states that you agree to pay 2 months damages. So that means that if you pay 2 months equal to rent, so if your rent is $2,000, you pay $4,000, we are agreeing to break the remainder of the lease. Now, that does not mean that you can live in the property for those 2 months. What you need to do in order to get as much money of that back as possible, or to lower the amount as much as possible, is number one, give us 30-day written notice before your intent to break the lease. That's number one. And that you're going to be leaving at that point in time. Then it's going to cost you 2 months worth of rent as liquidated damages. So you can't live in the property for those 60 days. You're going to give us 30-day notice and then double 2 months of rent, and then everything will be moving on. As long as the property is left in decent shape, you'll still get your deposit back. If you check the second box, it means that you do not want to pay 2 months. But what that also means is that you're still liable for the remainder of the lease. What does that mean? That means that if you are moving out, you've given us 30-day written notice, and you're moving out, but there's still 6 months left on the lease, by law, we are not allowed to collect double rent, which means if we are able to re-rent the unit quickly, like within a few weeks or a month, we are going to take the new tenant in, and we are no longer going to charge you the remainder of the lease because we have somebody paying the rent. However, if it takes 3 months to find a tenant, 4 months to find a tenant, you're responsible for every single one of those months until the new tenant moves in, all the way to the day that they move in, the day prior. So if it's a really hot rental market, which it has been for a while, that might be a better option. It all depends on what you guys would prefer to go with. So either you pay a double, you pay 2 months worth of rent as liquidated damages, or you pay until we find another tenant. And of course, we're going to try our best, but we have no crystal ball. And it does not mean that we have to replace the tenant for the same amount of rent. So if the market has gone up, we're allowed to replace your rent with a higher rent. And if that takes a little while longer, that's what happens. So you have to weigh those options and make the best decision for you. As a default, we check 2 months worth of rent as damages, but we can always change that depending on what you would like to do.